Joining us on the program now is Egon Garthhoffner with the Golden Rain Foundation. Eric Nunez, your Director of VMS Security. Thanks for joining us on the program today, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good morning.
You know, security is always an important aspect of our community, and a lot of residents actually move in because of security. It's 24/7. It's a gated community, and it's secure. And you can go on a walk at midnight if you want to, and not really have any issues. So, what's interesting about what you want to talk about today is the cooperation we have with our security department and the Orange County Sheriff's Department. And they have this real-time operations center that they're instituting now throughout Orange County. And how will that actually be incorporated with our own security department?
Right. Actually, I went to this what we call our SCCA meeting with and Director Garthhoffner is the committee chair of that committee, and ran it by them, and it's actually something that they heard and liked, and so we've been moving forward with this. What it is the Orange County Sheriff's Department has probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 3,500 cameras out there in those jurisdictions that they are responsible for. And obviously a number of them are with the cities that they have jurisdiction. But some of those I found out were like schools, even private schools, and other private companies and entities. So I thought, and talking to their captain of Laguna Woods, their chief of services, they call it, Captain Allday, who has just recently retired. He and I were talking about, the fact that we spend a lot of time collecting evidence for them, right? Something happens, and then they ask us for a videotape of whatever, the gatehouse that had the persons coming in or out. And so, in doing that, I said, it'd be nice if you guys could actually just have access to that, so that we could save a lot of staff time doing it, for one. And he said, actually, there's a thing called the Real-Time Operations Center that's been stood up now, and it's running, and I'd like to get you a tour of it and see what you think about that. And I said, well, how would we be involved in this? And he said, one of the things is that you would actually allow us access to those cameras. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I don't know all the tech on this, but this is how it would go. And so I said, okay, certainly. So we took a tour about 3 weeks ago, and looked at the facility, and it was pretty darn impressive. The kind of things that happen. So what we're looking to do is start off in phases, and the first phase would be all of our gatehouse cameras, and we have typically like 3 to 5 cameras out there. And our license plate reading camera and everything else. And what we would do is we buy a device, essentially. That device the cameras are hooked up through that device. That device shoots all those images up into the cloud. They are able to retrieve that information or view it as it's happening real time.
Wow.
So in the case of an emergency of some sort, and we call them, that camera will go live to them, and they'll look at it and see what the issue is, and then that'll help them to determine the level of response that they need to come at, and if whether fire, medical, those kinds of things are needed, and they can actually start helping to deploy those assets as required. So the response time should, be looked at it being increased. The level of response, the appropriate level of response should improve. And for them just to have situational awareness as to when they're coming onto the scene, what they're actually looking at.
Right. How important was this to the committee as you guys started to discuss it?
Well, I'm brand new to the committee, so it was a complete surprise to us.
Probably a good surprise, though, right? Because we're probably going to save in some staff time, looking for hundreds of hours of footage trying to find a car or a perpetrator that came into the community.
Right.
And then all we need to do is basically interconnect with the Orange County Sheriff's Department's, ROTC is what you always want to say, but it's RTOC.
RTOC.
Yeah, and I think it's a great opportunity when we did have, unfortunately, the event over at Geneva Presbyterian Church.
Sure.
So you kind of wonder, that is so close to our community. If we have this now, they can actually see certain aspects of that area.
Yeah.
And like you said, be proactive and reactive to what the situation might be if it's obviously in real time.
Exactly.
Wow.
So when we went to the tour, we saw how they actually access this. We took along with us, obviously, our manager of IT, John Cursett, and asked him, because he talks the jargon, the
Right.
lingo that they talk, is it's way above my head, in terms of that, the technology and on the connectivity issue.
Yeah.
But what we were really happy about is essentially we buy this device and it's not that expensive, but and we can put about 180 cameras on one device. And we have well over 200 cameras on this property. Not all of them, they need to actually see, but that's for our second phase and maybe even a third phase of deployment, right? Where we're looking at even maybe adding cameras in our facilities, like in the boardroom itself, because we have cameras for the video
Yeah.
of that, but we don't have cameras facing the audience where maybe a disruption would be coming from,
Right.
and seeing what's going on, and for them to be able to access those cameras and look at that, and some other the clubhouses, and as well as the golf area, and 19 and
And you have some perimeter cameras as well, because we know there's certain locations that seem a little more accessible, even though we put in the shepherd's hook and all that.
Yes.
But, the surrounding community has changed a little bit in the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and some of those things, and I don't want the misconception or that they're going to be monitoring all these cameras all at once, right? They don't actually do that. What they do is whenever there's an emergency for something, they actually will light up the cameras all the cameras around that area. And then they have it on their and they have a room as big as this room at least, of just a wall of
Right.
TVs.
Right.
And they just sit there and monitor what's going on with all of those cameras that are lit up, so they can see a suspect leaving,
Yeah.
what's going on, a vehicle,
Right.
and how many people, and what people that are injured maybe, or something like that.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
it's
so
pretty-
once activity they've been notified of certain criminal activity, possible criminal
Yeah.
activity, they have eyes on that area, and boom, they can kind of diagnose what needs to be done
Yeah.
during that time. What is really going on with security in your committee for 2025, other than we know it's the safest place to live?
Yeah. Well, we're going to look at automating the gates to save us a lot of money.
And what does that mean? Because you just had the
Well,
RFID system.
Yeah, I
in-
know. So if you go around and other communities here, you see gates that are simply automated. You drive up, it activates from your headlights,
Right.
that activation sticker, just as you would. But you would also have a place to punch in a code, so you can have your guests.
Right.
So you can give your guests a code.
Yeah.
And for example, I visit somebody at Christmas time up in Rancho San Margarita, and all I do is punch in the code and I go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And almost, it's just like going into a parking structure, because even now, I mean, when you enter the parking structure, it just opens, and then like you can put
Sure.
in your code or payment or whatever, and then, so that's one of the big projects you all are looking at for this year?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And when do you meet?
We're going to meet
in April.
Okay,
we
we meet
meet
at a
like
regular
the-
time.
yeah,
It's always on the calendar.
fourth
Yeah, it's always-
Wednesday.
yeah.
Fourth
Fourth
Wednesday of
Wednesday.
every month. Okay, and that's right in the
1:30.
boardroom. 1:30 in the boardroom, great.
Right.
Anything else you want to share with our viewers as we let you go?
I think there was only probably one concern was, how do we protect our video images, right? And one of the things on this MOU that you have to sign with the Sheriff's Department, it really lays out the responsibilities of both parties, the agency, which is the Sheriff's Department, and the partner. And one of the things was interesting is that we actually still own all the video.
Okay.
So even if they're going to do the investigative work and need to access that, they contact us and say, hey, we would like to access this for investigative purposes.
Right.
and which is fine with us because then we spend probably about 500, conservatively, about 500 hours a year reviewing video footage for them and then copying that footage and then sending them a copy of that
files.
footage of the
Wow,
files, right?
right.
So we still own it. You know, they obviously don't use it other than for law enforcement purposes to identify suspects and or ask the media for assistance in either identifying suspects or if they're looking for someone that's been missing.
Right.
You know, they would use that video with the last video seen of them leaving the property or something.
Exactly.
You know, so
Great. Anything else you'd like to share before we let you
No,
go?
I think that's it.
Sounds like a lot
Like I
of.
say, last meeting was my first time on the
Okay,
security committee.
right.
So I'm looking forward to.
To how the rest of the year
Yeah.
goes, yeah. Well, it sounds like we're heading in the right direction, and if staff and especially law enforcement can be proactive in securing our property and people especially,
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
yeah, I think I know it's your first
Pe-
meeting.
People are always, a lot of people are asking about, say, why don't we put security cameras here or there? Or,
Right.
So I think that's something we're going to look into this year too.
Absolutely. Well, great. Thank you
it's a
so
good
much for
job.
being a part of the program today.
thank
It
you.
sounds like we have a great opportunity for our residents to be safe. And again, you can be part of the security committee. You just come on over to some of their meetings and be sure and check the calendar on our website. We're going to be back with Polly's Pies, and we're going to be celebrating a little bit of St. Patrick's Day.